going to go through basically a big handbrake that I see, and that's stress. That's a really broad term that we're going to go through tonight, figure out what that looks like, what actually causes stress in our body, what it does as an overview, to our physiques, to our physiology, to our daily lives, and then basically try and give you guys some strategies to help overcome and better deal and adapt with these stresses, both with lifestyle stuff, so you can go home and actually do stuff tomorrow, not just supplementally. Even if you don't use subs currently, you can go home tomorrow and do lifestyle changes straight away, and you can throw those straight in. And then also supplement hacks as well to help get some hormonal balance back in and help lower some stress hormones as well while we're at it. So I guess my background is I own Primabolics Nutrition. I've been doing it for about 10 years or so, with dabbling with supplements in particular, and the last half decade or so has been really devoted to hormones in particular. And I see a lot of people will be, and you'll probably hear this quite a lot, you might find there are certain people who, you might be doing all the right things, you're dieting, you're exercising, you're looking what watching what you're eating, but you just, things just aren't budging. You might be, going on a weight loss campaign, say trying to start dieting, you're losing weight, stalling. We're hitting plateaus when we're maybe not progressing in the gym as often. Maybe we've got a spare tire that just won't move, or really stubborn body fat that just hangs there, like lower back, lower stomach is really, really common as well. There's some real trouble areas that might be really sticking there no matter what you seem to be doing. And a lot of the time, they're the trouble areas that we get asked for. Hey, people come in and like when they're saying weight loss, a lot of the time what they're actually meaning is saying, hey, I want to really get these trouble areas sorted. I want a flatter stomach. I want my love handles to go, or whatever it might be. Or if we're trying to build muscle mass as well, these are all really common things we get asked. And a lot of the time, the reason we can't achieve this goal is what we're going to talk about tonight. Is the hormonal sort of the back end to the front end. So I guess going through, to start us, will be an overview on how it all runs. So if we look on this first page, we've got some nice diagrams. I'm going to draw alongside of these ones too. But essentially, we're going to go through now. Stress is actually a really necessary part of our lives. Really, we need it to. It's the cortisol, our body's stress hormone, is actually crucial for survival. Without it, we'd actually die. So it's really, really quite important. Hello, how are you going? I'm going to give you a little info flyer. That you can follow along. Here we go.
Nicole loves everything to do with stress. Don't you, Nicole?
Oh, lovely.
Yes.
Well, don't we all, isn't it?
So that's stress now.
We always see enthused when we're talking about stress. I'm only on the first page, this is perfect. Hey, we're just going through, basically just running through saying how a lot of people's common sort of handbrakes to change, and a lot of issues they often find trying to progress in whatever your goal is. A lot of the time the root in it is our body being under stress, and how our body deals with that stress is a big part of fixing it. So that puts us literally on page 1. So if you just open through, that'll put us there. Now, this little diagram here is really quite cool. What it does, it shows us that stress is a really necessary part of our life. It actually meant to be. Without it, we wouldn't be able to wake up in the morning. Without it, we wouldn't have energy. Without it, we wouldn't be sleeping at night either. We need it for all parts of our circadian rhythm, if you've heard that term. Now, so as it says here, so cortisol is what sets our circadian rhythm. It tells us when we're meant to be awake, when we're meant to be asleep. It tells us a lot of functions about what our body's meant to be doing. Evolutionarily, it happened as a survival hormone, really. We'd be in a stressful situation, we'd have a survival situation arise. Our body would sort of, register that threat and, it put out cortisol. Cortisol would do things like liberate blood sugar for us. It'd dump a lot of sugar into our blood to give us fuel to burn. It would break through, it would also break down muscle to use those amino acids as fuel as well. It'd get, burn through a whole heap of nutrients and vitamins in particular to give us resources to burn. So how this would typically look if we've got a nice little curve, as we evolve, caveman era type stuff, we would have basically like so, AM, PM and so on. We'd have a stressful event go along, let's say caveman style, we're going along with saber-tooth tiger attacks, life's terrible. We have a stressful event, our body goes, oh no, it puts out cortisol, our body's stress hormone. We deal with this stress, it gives us all the resources we need, puts us in flight or fight, if you've ever heard that term. So the body goes, boom, let's gear you up for battle, let's go, let's pump, let's give you all the resources, surge adrenaline through the roof, let's jack up your blood pressure, jack up your heart rate, basically get you ready to punch and run, right? So this cortisol gets put out, gets us in this state, all good, we deal with the situation, hopefully, we run away and survive, in an ideal world. And then it basically returns to baseline and continues to follow our normal day. So really, really necessary hormone. Because in that situation, we obviously wouldn't be in a survival situation there. It's evolved in all its really, really useful hormones. Now, in today's life, though, what we tend to see is that unfortunately our body doesn't really know the difference between a stressful email, or maybe a few broken nights sleep, or maybe having a huge amount on at work, or maybe having relationship breakdowns, or maybe training at one too many times, maybe having too much coffee throughout the day. It doesn't know the difference between that and this life-threatening situation we have here. It's very, very common with how much we have going on. And what ends up happening is instead of being just little bumps and spikes throughout the day to deal with situations and get back to normal, it ends up looking like page 2. If you go across the next diagram, this is what we call chronically elevated. This is the chronic stress model. And this is more what we see with people who have got, families, busy lives going on, the hectic lifestyles we tend to lead. This is where we see it more so looking like. So we're seeing, stress chronically elevated, it's staying up elevated, it's putting our body perpetually in this state of flight or fight. So I guess what we're trying to do is get an understanding of how this works so that we can better understand how to return it to how it should be. So with the chronic model, what we're seeing with chronically elevated stress hormones is basically this little laundry list we have on the other page with symptom pictures. Now I'll go through some pretty relevant ones. And we did a bit of content earlier, so I'll get you to jump in with these because we had a heap. So we just went through and filmed a bit before this as well, so you guys have got a bit more resources after this to take home. And I guess going through some of the symptom pictures we spoke about before on cortisol, mate, what were some things that we touched on in the other room?
Yeah, for sure. So guys, there's a lot that comes into play. Like we were saying before, when it comes to identifying these pictures, generally it's more noticeable when you've got a given routine. When we're all up and down, it's generally a lot harder to depict what is actually going on in our body. So when we're in a better routine, we generally find that things aren't working out too well. And things like that, like for example, if we're dieting, we start to have one of those off days, our gut just, we're real gassy, but we're eating all the same food.
Digestive issues, super common.
Yeah, we wake up one day and we're bloated. Unless you're a female and you're going through your menstruation, it's normal. But we wake up and we're like bloated. It's like, hang on a second, what have I been doing? I've eaten the same food, I've done the same thing, nothing can cause us to bloat. We find a lot of processes like that in terms of our digestion. If we're bulking or if we're dieting, we can find stalls in our appetite. So sometimes we just physically don't even want to eat. We'll put food in our mouth and feel like gagging sometimes. You just don't have the stomach for food. We find it a lot in the females who undereat. When you undereat, what happens is, because you've got to remember, our body's working at 100 miles an hour. We've got all these different micro functions, organs, hormone balances, biochemical reactions that are occurring that we never actually account for our energy. These are burning calories every day just to optimize us breathing, us living. And we don't account for that. We, as individuals, we slate ourselves away and burn at our calorie rate, and we account for exercise. And we count exercise as the only way to burn our calories. But internally, our body is struggling. So when we happen with that, what happens is when we're not feeding our body right, we start to shut down the not so important organs in order to preserve our heart, our liver, our lungs, our brain, our bigger organs. So things start to shut down, and as a result, we lose our appetite.
Metabolism slows down. We end up holding more fluid. Our body starts prioritizing things because it thinks we're starving. Our energy, everyone's ever heard of the term basal metabolic rate. This is a really crucial part for later on. So we're going through the symptom pictures there, but we're also going to go through sources of stress later, and the most common one being undereating. So if anyone's heard the term BMR, right, so your basal metabolic rate. So let's say that our body's energy demand is at a given level. So if we have on here output versus input, right? So if our energy demand is here, so this is our BMR we're pinned at. Now if our calorie consumption is down here chronically, what we find is in the short term, it will just burn the difference and we'll lose weight. That's typically the goal, right? That's how a calorie deficit works. We're burning more than we're consuming, right? So in a short term sense, that can be okay if we're trying to, but if you find that over time you're doing this consistently, what's going to happen is instead of us losing the difference here, instead the basal metabolic rate starts coming down to meet it, because it goes, we need to survive. We can't constantly be running on no fuel. You can't run a car with no fuel constantly. So what it does, it adapts. It down regulates the amount of fuel it needs. So instead of it going, instead of it, taking that weight loss, what we tend to see is that we've already got this loss of appetite we spoke about. We've already got this situation where we're already under-eating what our body needs, energy-wise, but we haven't got the appetite there for once. We think we're okay. We're going along going, oh, but I'm not hungry though. I'm eating intuitively. I'm eating according to what my hunger signals are. My body's telling me not to eat because it's in flight or fight mode. We're under eating, which causes the stresses to rise in our body. Stress suppresses appetite, and so on and so on we go. A lot of these things work in loops. So a really common symptom picture of high cortisol is appetite suppression, is digestive issues, particularly bloating, and things that might not have given you issues before, like dairy or gluten or lactose. You might not have had issues with those before, but if you find out of nowhere, these things starting to give you flare-ups. That's a really common symptom picture. Also, in terms of how you perform throughout the day mentally, there's also things like being very foggy-headed, poor concentration, like really short concentration span, struggling to actually focus, and having poor short-term memory, like putting your keys down and forgetting where you put them. Like trying to multitask but never really actually finishing anything. Like you're running around doing a million things and you're sort of only half doing any one of them. Got all the browsers open, you've got a million apps open on your phone going, you're writing text, you look away and you've sort of forgotten who you've texted. All that sort of scattered sort of state is very, very common. And then also with that you get that goldfish memory. With our body again, it's in flight or flight, so it doesn't think it needs to build memory. That's not a priority right now. It's in punch and run. So our body's constantly. We've got to think back to what is our body trying to do. How did our body evolve? How's our physiology work? It's in flight or flight mode. It doesn't need to sit there and focus on the tiny details. It's in survival mode. So foggy-headedness, poor short-term memory, really, really common. Poor concentration span. Now, also struggling to switch off as well mentally. So if you're someone who lays down at night, head hits the pillow, and your head's just still going, and you're thinking about that email you should have sent that day, or the phone call you should have had, or the text you just sent, or you're scrolling on Insta and you can't stop, or you think about the next day you've got coming up, and you're laying there and it's the hours are ticking by and you're not switching off at night, or when you're asleep you find that you're a bit of restless sleep, you're tossing and turning, and you're waking up throughout the night, you go to the bathroom, you might wake up in the morning and feel like you haven't slept at all. You might find that you get up, you hear a pin drop at night and you're awake. You're a light sleeper. You might find that you're not a morning person, is a common one. I hear all the time, I'm not a morning person. I'm like, well, we are. We evolved to wake up. Like we were meant to, be here at a certain time of day. So we are all morning people by evolution. But when we're not a morning, when our body's saying we aren't, that's a sign that something is going wrong with that part of the curve. With that morning spike is no longer functioning properly, and that lowering in the evening isn't either, because that cortisol is chronically elevated. So in sleep, super common. If you're a crappy sleeper, light sleeper, not a morning person, they're really, really obvious symptom pictures that your body's under a place of stress. Some other classic ones on there as well. Mood, low libido is a classic one too. Low libido always comes hand in hand with stresses, quite commonly anyway. Low appetite, fluid retention as well, and finding stubborn body fat in terms of what it physically looks like as well. If you go over, there's actually a nice little diagram that sums it up perfectly with what here, the stressed body shape. So the apple shape basically is what we see. So what's happening here in this picture is, because our body's in flight or fight, like I said before, it always wants resources right now. If we're under eating though in a lot of cases, or if we are in a calorie deficit, or if we're just not quite up to the task, a lot of the time our body will break down the next most available fuel source, which is muscle mass. So it will break down our muscle and then because it thinks we're in survival, it wants to store fat and fluid for later, because it wants us to be able to survive the situation and hopefully go on. So it breaks our muscle and builds fat. It's like the worst possible combination. So you'll see people who have this will be stressed people will find it very hard to build muscle on their arms and legs in particular. They're particularly trying to build mass in your quads and try to build legs up. You might find your diet, those are the first places to lose muscle as well. And then also holding body fat really stubbornly around your lower stomach or lower back, your love handles, like in a belt around the abdomen basically, because your body's trying to store fat there preferentially. So that's a really good just visual of what's happening basically with we're finding muscle wastage on the extremities, and we're holding fat and fluid quite stubbornly around the midsection.
Yeah, just to add on that, guys, as well, if you're not actually dieting or doing any form of progression work, and then you've got these happening, don't put it straight down to cortisol. Analyze your lifestyle and analyze all the points, and if things are adding up to be cortisol, yeah, for sure. But a lot of people will listen to this going, oh, that's my problem. Yeah. I don't need to diet too much. You know what I mean? So it's a big balance between everything you're doing. But if you know that you're progressing and you're doing something that's regular, and you're like, I'm still just not shifting, then look at the cortisol side of things as well. Just be mindful of that. Yeah. Last thing I want people leave here and go, sweet.
It's just stress.
Good.
Yeah, just stress. Body fat is still body fat. But if we still, look, as a positive though, and it also comes hand in hand, funny enough, a lot of the symptom pictures we're talking about tonight, funny enough, if you Google, symptom pictures of estrogen dominance, say, or a lot of other hormonal imbalances, slow thyroid function, these sort of are very similar symptom pictures. And the reason is they're all linked together as well. So we can start making some inferences, right? So if any of those symptom pictures sound relevant to you guys, the poor concentration, poor short-term memory, not switching off at night, the poor sleep quality, struggling to recover from workouts, not progressing from workouts, finding it hard to build muscle mass, all these sort of things. And I guess not only is there cortisol, we can also infer that's going to have an impact on our other hormones because they all come from the same place. So if you look here, this little diagram is probably the most clear one. The one on the other page is a little bit hectic looking, but basically what we know is that they all play off each other. They're on a very tight knit little loop. So if our stress hormones are higher, because all of our hormones come from the same source, pregnenolone, which comes from cholesterol. So we've all heard of cholesterol. Cholesterol, built from fats. That's where our body builds all of our hormones from. Everything. It comes from one parent source, right? So this parent hormone has basically a choice. Your body has a constant choice to make. It's going, do I want to build our primary sex hormones for reproduction, longevity, thriving, or do I want to build survival hormones? Is the other one. Do I want to put down the adrenal pathway? So I guess what we can sort of to simplify that diagram further. If we've got someone who's got chronic stress going on, and we've sort of identified based on those symptom pictures that's probably something relevant, then typically what we can also sort of figure out, and why Jared's right in saying those symptom pictures aren't always just cortisol. They're also often, say, estrogen dominance. They can be other hormone imbalances as well. The reason is, here you go, so pregnenolone down to DHEA. Now you can either go down to the, let's say, thyroid, which is our metabolic pathway, I guess you'd say in a simplistic sense. Go down our adrenal pathway, or it can go down our sex hormone pathway. And that's your test, estrogen, and so on. So basically what we're trying to say with that little flow chart is that if we've got our body going screaming for resources towards the adrenals, this is where our cortisol comes from, right? Our adrenal glands. That's why you'll see a lot of products that helps with stress are called adrenal support. The adrenal glands sit above our kidneys, and they are responsible for putting out cortisol, this survival hormone, right? This stress hormone. So if we're pulling all these resources down this axis, unfortunately, it also pulls resources away from here, from metabolic pathways, with your thyroid function. It pulls resources away from your primary sex hormones as well, because it's trying to prioritise. Your body's always scanning the environment, always looking for something to prioritise. So in this particular case, if you're in flight and fight, you've got lots of chronic stresses going on, it's prioritising this particular area. It's going, oh, okay, well, we don't need to reproduce right now, so we're not going to prioritise boosting testosterone or estrogen production. If anything, it lowers testosterone very significantly. In studies, that's the number one way to smash testosterone through the floor is get stresses up straight away. Same with estrogen, it drives estrogen up as well, funnily enough. Now, it also drives down your thyroid function, which is your body's thermostat, okay? That's your body's metabolism. So we've all had that basal metabolic rate. That's about 70-80% of your daily calorie burn is coming from your basal metabolic rate. Now that's actually set from your thyroid. That's your body's thermostat. It's what actually governs how your metabolism functions. It's an organ that's designed to, it is your metabolism essentially in an organ. Now the function of your thyroid indicates how good that is, and that's 80% of your daily calorie burn. So straight away, if we've got all these resources pulled down here, our metabolism is going to be it's going to be taking a hit. So our basal metabolic rate is going to be on the lower side. We're going to find it hard to hit that calorie deficit. We've also got less resources going toward our primary sex hormones as well. So we're going to find things like estrogen dominance is a bit more prevalent. We see things, and that's again more we were talking before, other symptom pictures. That's the love handles, that's the apple shape as well, back of arms as well, lower chest, very common in guys and girls. So what we try and do here in the second part of it, it's a bit doom and gloomy up until now, is try and give you guys sort of some hacks, because if we can take the burden off the adrenal axis and stop pushing so much resource that way, we very quickly do like 1 + 1 = 3, right? So we very quickly start giving more resources back to our metabolism, down our thyroid pathway, and we start pulling more resources back down that primary sex hormone pathways, because we're not using all this pregnenolone down through the adrenal pathway. So we have heaps more to play with. Our body goes, oh cool, if we can deal with the stress, the body starts going, I can prioritise that stress hormone a little bit less and start giving more resources to the other areas. So that's what that little flow diagram is trying to say. So I guess where we're going to give you the practical stuff now is we're going to go through a list, and we came through some cracker ones on the series we just filmed, which is going to be available soon. But the lifestyle hacks is the fun ones, because they're things you can just start tomorrow. You can literally, and even tonight, you can go home tonight, try them and throw them in, even if you're not supplemental people. So going through, man, what were some of those lifestyle hacks that we had before when we were filming about helping moderate cortisol and stress in people's lives?
Yeah, I'll leave sort of the lifestyle sense to you more so in terms of like that daily routine.
Oh yeah, great.
I'm really good in the sense of how we can make lifestyle changes in relation to our trainings and stuff like that as well. The biggest thing that you want to do is obviously, like we always say, the calories and stuff like that. The biggest thing is touching on the metabolic, or what we call metabolic window or adaptation. Our body works on a 4-hour window. So what we want to do is, a lot of people have 3 meals a day. And a lot of people in this room know how much I nag about not having 3 meals a day. So if we're awake at 7 o'clock and you're going to bed at 10 o'clock, that's a fairly big length of window that you're awake, and how you're going to get a 4-hour window out of it. 15 to 12 hour window, you know what I mean? So what we try and do is we try and eat every 2 to 3 hours, and you've always heard that, you probably just heard it, but you never actually understood it. What happens, right, is the moment that the food touches our tongue and goes out via our GI tract, it takes roughly about 4 hours. Obviously depends on how much you're eating other variables, but roughly 4 hours, all right? So what happens is our blood sugar regulation works off that as well. So we can hit up to about 6.2 millimole all the way down to 3.2. So the moment that we consume something, depending on the nutrient on the food, we spike our blood glucose up, which is perfect, and we want to keep it regulated. So eating every 2 to 3 hours, we keep that regulated. If we don't eat within that 4-hour window, what happens is, as the nutrients start to leave our GI tract, we start to dip, and our blood sugar starts to go down towards 3.2, which is very low. Right, so we want to keep that up to date. All right. In doing so, you're also going to minimise the stress. So when we're eating regularly, I eat 6-7 times a day, quite a fair bit, and it's not little meals, it's big meals. That's what I need. But what it does is, if I was to eat 3 meals a day, but then I'm doing physical labour at work, I'm training quite hard, because I don't have, and like we all said in the diagram, if you don't have those cholesterols or those fats or anything like that, our body will disperse and try and utilise our hormones for other reasons. So with that lacking, right, we're going to so yeah, as I was saying, right, so if we're going to miss out on those windows, we're going to elevate those stress because we don't have that food coming through to pretty much reduce, and as a result, cortisol spikes.
Very, very good one. Actually, eating regularly is one of the most underrated, I think. And eating adequately was something you touched on before. And I think you having the nutrition background is a really good insight to this one here. Because I'll go through more the daily routine sort of life hacks, and then you're going to go through more the nutritional ones. Probably eating enough at all is a big one. Like eating to even, and what we were discussing before is relevant, is eating, if you've been doing periods of dieting, periods of, if you've had a background of yo-yo dieting, so a background of just being in long period calorie deficits, it's really, really useful as a therapeutic tool to spend some time sometimes at calorie maintenance, eating at your actual, what your body needs to function, to regulate the hormones, to keep your cortisol down, because it's not always ideal to be constantly in a state of dieting. It's our body is by definition having less food than it needs. So that is also quite useful. So eating regularly is a really big one, and eating enough, eating towards that caloric maintenance is a massive one. Now, in terms of the, and that consistency that Jared spoke about is also super crucial, because I guess the body is an adaptive animal, and it really likes routine, loves routine, thrives on it, right? So what we want to have is, if we go onto this page here, how do we help lower and restore hormonal balance? Here we've got the page here of lifestyle hacks, and it's a nice little laundry list we can use, and we can tick off these each day as part of a bit of a laundry list of helping to have our body hit that routine and maintain some things. Now, probably the most important ones out of that long list, when we first wake up, getting some sun exposure, getting some light exposure. So when we wake up, get some sunlight straight away. If we in winter, obviously, I'm up at 4 as well, 4 or 5. So there's no sun for a few hours, so I get up and just get light straight on. What that does is that starts that morning cascade that we had over there. So that initial curve that we saw with that cortisol spike, that starts that off and puts your circadian rhythm going for the day. So that's really, really important. Get up, get light. Next thing is movement. Exercise of any form in the morning is fantastic, ideally. Moving, whether that's just going for a walk, even we'll do jogging, just getting our body moving, get blood flowing, get everything cranking. Okay, if you can exercise, that'd be great. Ideally, as well, the best case scenario training-wise is if you can do it in the morning as well. That's also fantastic. Or if you're in the afternoon, minimising stimulants is a great idea. Just because our body's designed to try and follow this nice little curve, and we're always trying. While stress is really great at, whilst training is really good at making us more resilient to stress and making us actually deal with stress a lot better. It's also in the short term a bit of a bump in cortisol as well. So try to train less so in the evenings. If we are training in the evenings, that's cool. Like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Always do what you can. If you can only train once a day and it's in the evenings, 100% go train at night. Ideally though, if you have a flexible enough routine where you can allow that, if your mornings are available to do it, getting up in the morning and trying to put as much output in the first half of the day is really, really good too. But again, that comes down to your schedule. So if your schedules allow you to train in the morning, that's quite good. It takes a bit of getting used to if you're someone who's used to training at night on a full day's food, especially when you're on the food on 4,000+ calories. You know, you're used to eating a lot of carbs. So, but that's a different training experience. Training in the morning fasted, but look, training in the morning is always a good way to sort of kickstart that. So whether you get up, go for a jog, go for a walk, just get moving, walk the dog, whatever. Get some light exposure, get movement happening. That helps put us in the right start part of the day. From then on in, we want to try and, again, eat regularly throughout that first one. That was a good point that we had there, so Jared's covered that off beautifully in why. And the next part is having, I guess, where's my next favourite one? Beautiful. Good. We also want to have limiting alcohol consumption is a good one. That's a really good one. So we also want to, apart from eating the regular meals, also limiting alcohol consumption. Now the reason is alcohol not just, it has a lot of deleterious effects on our hormones. So it tends to lower testosterone. It also is an acute stressor as well in our body because our body treats it as a poison to try and process it. So, and it's quite negative on our gut health as well. So alcohol is quite, whilst we're just trying to do a campaign to restore some hormonal balance and lower stresses in our body, trying to remove something that is a stressor in our body is a really good idea. So I know a lot of people use, alcohol is a really common stress hack for people. Like a lot of people go to alcohol to try and remove stress a little bit, and they think they sleep better after a few glasses of wine. So if you look at their sleep data, it's actually atrocious. Like it's always the worst. Like you look at their REM sleep, their deep sleep, it's rubbish. And even if it has a smartwatch or an Apple Watch or a tracker or whatever sort of sleep device, what you want to look at is your deep sleep and REM sleep and see, you really want that to be about 20 to 25% of your total sleep. So 8 hours of sleep, you want to have about 2.5 hours of REM/deep sleep in there. So, if you're looking at your sleep tracker after alcohol, you'd be quite surprised. Even if you feel like you've passed out and had a great sleep, if you looked at your data, I guarantee it's not. Your body's, you're probably tossing and turning, you probably had a more percentage of light sleep than you normally would without it. So limiting alcohol has a few positives. It drives up estrogen, it lowers testosterone, it increases cortisol, slows down your metabolism. It's actually like the one thing you can pull out that makes a pretty big impact is alcohol. So,
Another thing to touch on the alcohol side, guys, is that unfortunately, us males, we get hindered worse. Studies are actually showing that we've got the worst results when it comes to alcohol consumption. So, because what actually happens is females don't advise to drink it, but you guys don't get as bad in terms of results. What actually happens is because of our testosterone, when males consume excess over their weight of what their body can handle technically of alcohol, that we actually shut down our IGF-1 or inhibit our IGF-1 signaling. So we always want to get big and want to put muscle and stuff like that. We do the opposite by drinking alcohol.
Yeah, so it lowers most of your chances of muscle building, recovery, but testosterone too. And I see a lot of guys that stress really does dampen testosterone as well. And in women it boosts up estrogen, which sounds great, but it's a hormone that you want basically to be in a very fine balance. Everything's always about balance and keeping it in the right ratios. Okay, so I guess we're going to get up, get moving, get our exercise happening, get some light exposure. We're going to limit alcohol consumption. We want to eat regularly. We want to make sure we're eating to our energy needs, ideally. Or if we're in a deficit, do it with a coach. So you've got someone who's not making sure you're not just eating a silly amount of calories. You're lucky here. You've got Jared. He can run you through how to actually do a diet sensibly. I see so many times people will jump on a diet. They just jump online, Google the next fad diet. Go, okay, cool. Let's do 1,200 calories today, just for fun. And you go through and they hit a wall in 4 weeks, and they're like pulling their hair out, they've got no food. Like it's ideal that you can try and get someone professional to help you with the food, because that's where a lot of people fall down. Big time. Now that's most of my lifestyle hacks for the morning half, and then evening is the opposite. We want to try and wind things down. Okay, so again, limit light exposure, because like when we see lights, we have glands behind our eyes called our pineal glands. They sense light and they think it's daytime. So what they're going to do is restart that cortisol curve. They're going to kick out cortisol and they're going to stop melatonin production. Melatonin is really important for sleep. So as soon as we see light, boom, melatonin's cut off. And for every bit of light exposure you're getting at night, it takes about the ladies' melatonin production for about half an hour. So if you go and turn a light on and go to the bathroom throughout the night, straight away it's going to take you a lot longer to get to a deep sleep after that event. If you're if you're watching TV in the evening or whatever, look on a laptop, most laptops, most smartphones, most tablets, if you go into your brightness settings, there's here on the someone, down the bottom it's got a night mode, like night shift basically, and you can set that as well for it to kick in automatically, and there's you can set whatever times. after about 5, 6 p.m. you really want that to happen. If you look at the difference in what it does to brightness, it's quite significant for blue light output as well. So that's a really easy hack. You know, if you're at home, if you watch most of your TV at night on laptops or on tablets or iPads or phones, even if you're scrolling at night, you're laying there and you just, you know, have a bit of a casual scroll, that's a really good way to sort of help minimise some blue light exposure as well. So that's a really handy, easy hack for most people's, you know, sort of devices. 99% of things have it.
Trying to find it.
iPhone? Yeah, sweet.
Terrible technology.
Yeah.
We'll spend the hour with you after this.
Yeah, we've got a staff special after this. Yeah, just on your little brightness one, just hold on it and it'll come up for you. So just hold on that little one of brightness one.
Sorry, everyone, we'll be here.
Okay, I found it, guys.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. How good. And it allows you to set it. See, now it's got your little screen there. It'll let you set it for time. So you can, like, say, start at 5 p.m, don't come back on until 6 a.m. Whatever you normally sleep at. So that's a really, really easy one to sort of throw in. At night, we're trying to, like, minimise all stimulus, okay? And then caffeine consumption. It says you limit caffeine. Seems super obvious, but I guess people don't pay respect to the length of time that has in your system. So the half-life of caffeine is 4 to 5 hours. So the full length of caffeine, depending on what form of caffeine it is, can be 8 to 10 hours in length. So you can have, you know, 100 milligrams of caffeine at say midday. At 4 or 5 p.m, that's still 50 milligrams. And then again at 8, 10 o'clock that night, it's only just clearing your system fully then from the midday coffee you had. So if you're having a coffee at 2, 3 p.m. to help you with that, you know, like that energy dump we often get when stress is a thing, you know, you can be, that doesn't clear your system until much later than you physically feel it anymore. And the mental feelings of, you know, of arousal and stuff with caffeine can be long gone. Yep.
Like today.
We hit the wall.
Coffee run? Coffee run, anyone? Or have a bang or a C4 or something like that. But if you guys are getting that slumber, best thing is get out of your chairs, get moving, elevate the blood. But also increase fats around that time. Like if you're going to eat, increase some fats. So fats are actually shown to improve and prevent that slumber. So all it is the actual technical term or side of it is that we have a regulation around that time with our hormones. It's the same hormones we get around our bedtime as well, where we change our temperature in our body, and that gets us in ready to a nice deep sleep. So that's why at 2 o'clock, nearly everyone is the same. Everyone will hit that wall, and yeah. So don't go for caffeine. Obviously, if you're working, you know, pre-labor and you don't get, no, I deserve a caffeine today. But that's a simple lifestyle and diet hacks you can do to.
More fats. It wants fats. It wants calorie-dense foods because we're in survival mode, and it wants to fuel that constant freight train that you're on of trying to be in flight or fight. So a lot of time you crave those. Also, blood sugar goes up and down as well because blood sugar management gets pretty hard when you are stressed. And blood sugar dipping up and down is like the main culprit for people having a sweet tooth. If you're someone who just like uncontrollably go reaches for chocolate in the afternoon or has like a ravenous sweet tooth, like most times it's blood sugar management being quite poor because, you know, it's like I said before, your cortisol's trying to give your body sugar to burn, trying to dump sugar into your blood constantly, runs out of it and you have these lows and your body thinks it's starving, it thinks it's going, oh, I've got low blood sugar, I need sugars, I need to bump that back up. It thinks it needs that because it thinks it's having like a short-term hypo, but you throw in some carbohydrates and I think, yeah, I hate this. So it reaches for sweet sugary things, a quick sugar hit. So that's a really obvious symptom picture too of the cortisol picture. And I guess part of managing that is, like Jared said, having more fats in there. When you're at that energy dump, instead of reaching for the quick sugars, thinking of you that hit, you're just going to have that roller coaster later on. You're going to have a spike, feel great for an hour, for half an hour or so, an hour, and then it has a lot of reactive low in blood sugar and you feel crappy again. So
another good thing as well, like as a coach and as an advisor, you know, for you guys as clients, customers, and everyday people, we don't ever take a step back from our lifestyles and analyse what's happening. So we go, I'm tired. So, you know, we never actually go, hang on, stop. Why am I tired? What's happening? What's the cause for this?
So let's throw in these lifestyle hacks. Let's get those cranking. And alongside those, let's throw in some supplements to give us a bit of a helping hand on it. So where I sort of made, in particular the hormonal products being these guys here, is used in addition to those. Restore in particular being the real golden child of the stress management space. I made this as what we call adrenal support. Helps really just dampen, boost a lot of these happy, what we call neurotransmitters, so really nice feel-good, happy hormones really that get you in a place where your body's like, cool, I'm going to wind down, switch off, I'm out of this fight or flight mode, I'm back into rest and digest, rebuild, recover, let's sleep. And you get a much deeper restful sleep for it, and when you wake up you're feeling more fresh. And once we get that deeper sleep, we also find that for the 24 hours after that, our stress hormones are significantly lower. And what it means in body composition terms, people who slept 8 hours a night instead of 6, only 2 hours difference in sleep, they lost 55% more fat than the group who did 6 hours sleep. Only 2 hours sleep difference, they lost 55% more fat. It was 1.4 kilos versus 0.6 kilos of fat in that study. So you imagine if you're trying to make like a change in the gym or just change in lifestyle, or trying to go for a diet or get healthier or fitter, the real thing is sleep. That's the heavy hitter in the room. You can lose 55% more fat by optimizing your sleeping window. That's huge, you know. And same with muscle mass too. If we're looking for the opposite way, the same group that slept 6 hours instead of 8, they also lost 60% more muscle. So they lost half the fat and double the muscle of the other group. It's like the worst situation ever. They had a really, really rough time. So yeah, it's only 2 hours of extra sleep. It was 8 hours instead of 6. It was so powerful for men in terms of testosterone production as well. They likened it to being on TRT, on hormone replacement therapy. It was so profoundly important for testosterone production. It's amazing. You know, so sleep really, really prioritise that. So when I made a supplement to help with stress, with bouncing back, with changing body composition and recovery, I made a Restore for the bedtime window more so. So it's a capsule-based one, so you don't have to have a drink before bed or worry about any of that. You just literally use, you know, the dose that I like to use. We run on 4 capsules. This is sort of the set that I like to use for Restore. That's like the real. Let's drop cortisol now. Let's get down. You've had your busy day. You get in the door. You wind down. You have dinner, and you're like, okay, I'm just going a million miles an hour. 4 happy days, and you'll find that you switch off, get sleep, and you're down, right? Now, you can dial it up and down how your life's going. So my partner, if she's doing shift work, for example, she might run the full 4 sometimes. Other times in normal 9 to 5 sort of, shifts, she'll just do 2. It's sort of dialed up and down with how your day's going. If you're having a pretty hectic period at work, you can do 2s and 3s. If you can do the 4s and 3s. And if everything's all cool and peachy and we're just running in maintenance mode, you can just use 2s. Yeah, that's pretty well fine too. So that's just like the crux. You can use it pretty much year round, and just to help bounce back from each day. Get that sleep moving, and then the rest of the stuff is sort of I guess more specific. These guys here, I just think, does anyone use protein powders currently? Bit of a loading question because a few of us that do, but yeah, everyone. So I see them as groceries more so, and I guess a big part of our and particularly where Jared differentiates himself is focusing so much on nutrition, because that's where a really big fundamental part of the pie is getting enough calories in, getting adequate protein in as well. Because a lot of your body's detoxification systems and hormone building it requires amino acids in there, so you need a high protein diet. And you've heard it a million times from people, but it is quite crucial. So that's where these guys come in. This is my range, but I also throw in some extra differences. Some of those adaptogenic herbs that help lowering stress hormones are also in the protein powder to help. So if you're a nighttime trainer, that's really handy too, because it helps to wind down some stresses after the evening training, or use it throughout the day, and it'll just help to, again, regulate that cortisol throughout the day. So it's a bit of a 2-in-1, like a mild Restore plus a dietary protein source over here. So, and they're all mixed up. I've got 9 flavours, so you really can't run out of choices for them. There's heaps. They're all done on stevia. I've got a multivitamin too, because as we said, you burn through a lot of nutrients when you're stressed, and most people don't get enough in the first place. So that's a really, really good source to start plugging in some gaps in our diet. It's just a nice full spectrum multivitamin. Now, if you're someone who really finds that they're missing solid meals more so than anything than trying to just get a post-workout or try and get a little bit more protein in, Nourish I made as a meal replacement more so. That's more like powdered whole foods. So that's more the, it's powdered oats and sweet potatoes and blueberries and coconut water. Like that's basically like meal prep in a ton. It's really quite cool stuff. Like it is essentially, I made this because I'm always on the road. I never have a decent source of nutrition around. There's nothing good I can get from a servo on the road, like nothing. I've tried and it's not good. And so what I did is I made something powdered. Like it's basically powdered meal prep. Like oats, sweet potato, coconut water. Things with blueberries. Things you'd see on a pretty standard diet that you'll, with a decent coast. Like you'll see them in a lot of meal plans. And I just powdered it and put it into a tub. So that's a bit more, it's got a nice balance of proteins, fats and carbohydrates. So you've got sort of a nice balanced meal there. And you can use that as a bit of a step up. So these guys here help hit your protein diet, use it around the workout, put it on your oats, make it a smoothie, what have you. Or if you're really time poor and you find that meal prep is really what you're missing out on each time, Nourish is pretty much just meal prep in a tub. That's like the real, a bit more balanced. It's not just protein, it's got some nice carbs, got some nice fats from MCTs as well. That's just a nice convenience fuel. And then finally, this end of the spectrum is more the hormonal stuff. Now, Estro is more for, this is for both guys and girls, but it works really well if we find, like we said, when we have higher stresses, we tend to also increase estrogen as well. And we see it really, really commonly with people, because also a lot of environmental factors drive estrogen too, like soy, plastics, BPAs, a lot of things. So on the estrogenic side of things, Estro is another capsule product I made that works synergistically with that, which can help with regulating your estrogen and restoring to more of a more ideal range. And then Primal Test for the opposite end of the spectrum, which is helping with testosterone support as well. So the hormonal support products are really fantastic at sort of helping to, if you want to make a really big change on that whole diagram, and you know, sort of work on dampening the restore, dampening that adrenal angle with the restore, and then boosting the others. That's like the most rapid change you can make. Then you can sort of use these in unison with each other. Just depends where you're up to. You know, happy for come up and ask at the end. You know, if you don't want to ask in front of the group, I can recommend which ones I'd go with for which situation. And then finally, we have more performance-based ones, and particularly grind, I think, as a non-stimulant pre-workout. I don't know if anyone's ever, you know, like some people look at me weird when I say a pre-workout without caffeine, but if you're a night trainer in particular, and we just spoke about how in the evenings we don't want cortisol high, we don't want stimulants after 1, 2 p.m, that guy there is worth trying. Okay, I've got it open too if you want to have a crack at it, but a caffeine-free pre-workout, but still has everything you want, nootropics as well, so you still feel dialed in, that guy's king. So if you're an evening trainer, like the best sort of stack in the world is like restore and grind. Go out, train, have no caffeine, but then before bed, drop restore, get our cortisol down, get us to sleep. And that's gonna be a drastically better picture than doing a high stim pre-training, going home and having crappy sleep. So that's...
I'll have that now and go home and walk 3D. Because I'll come out looking good tomorrow.
Good puffs, very, very good puffs. Very fun puffs with it. So these, I guess they're the performance stuff, hormonal, but restore is very much like, if any of that cortisol symptom pictures sound irrelevant, restore is the go-to guy. It is really, really great. Something you can just use straight away, throw it in tonight, and you will see like sleep just night and day. So
I'll just jump in there and provide a bit of an education regarding like the restore, the application of stress, and the application of the proteins to maximise your results. Obviously, everyone in here trains. Who doesn't train? Oh, good, no one. There's a door. No, joking. So that way you guys can get a bit more value out as well, and learn a bit more. The reason why I'm jumping in with this wheel, especially because it works really well, it might be something you can also teach a lot of people in your next time as well. The biggest issue in terms of the performance and coaching side that we're seeing now is the fact of not only like stress happening and people just not getting results, people are going even harder to get these results. When really, we just need to make everything perfect. So what I'm going to do is teach you a bit of the science behind the application of stress into training, and then how to maximise your results with some protein. And that way you guys can utilise whey ripped or whatever you guys want to use for your protein, but at least you guys will walk out of here and know how to apply it effectively. So when we train, right guys, to touch on cortisol. So cortisol is a steroid hormone that creates breakdown in the body. It's the only hormone that actually breaks down. So when we're training, weights, cardio is not applicable, unless you're doing like a HIIT or very aggressive, or functional style, but I don't count that. Weights only in HIIT, no. So with weight training, right, when we stimulate, we're initiating cortisol. And that's how we break down our muscle protein. So, a few facts to put on here. Put a lot of red. So, MPB, these are some terms I'm going to spit for getting typed, right? MPB equals muscle protein breakdown. That's what we want. It's good when we're training. Me and my M's tonight, atrocious. Muscle protein. You guys want to read my rest writing yet? No? Right, so when I say MPB, you guys will know what I'm talking about. When I say MPS, you guys will know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'll rattle that off pretty quickly. So, when it comes to the application of training, right guys, we have a baseline here. It's not a very straight baseline, but it's a baseline. So this is what I call balance. That simple term. Homeostasis. That's the technical term. So, simple, balance, easy. All right? Love my colours. So, when we train, we're up here. Our food's high, we're hydrated, everything like that, all right? It's just the start of our stimulus. So we're going into the session, UPD, we created some weights. Cool, yeah, sweet. That's how we train, cool? So this is the basic point. So, I'll use my other pen here. So, straight away, stimulus applied. MPB initiated. from cortisol. So, stimulus is applied, cortisol goes up, MPB, we break down our muscle fibers. This is it. Right? This is what we call the recovery curve. So once we create weights, we stimulate, our cortisol goes higher, we break down our tissue, and now we're below homeostasis. We're taking the body away from its balance, where it was comfortable. So now, this is what we call, get down here, recovery. And this is where proteins, nutrition, and restore are gonna help you big time. So, when we dip down here, we start to go up. I did a little bit of a zigzag to give another story. All right, this is what we call the recovery curve. So we dip down, this is generally about day 1. My pen's running out. Day 1, and then day 2 at the bottom. You should only ever see pretty much a 2-day time for your recovery. As you get used to your stimulus, you probably won't find that you get as sore, but 2 days is the effective recovery time. So don't train that same muscle group or that same exercise in those days. Allow for the recovery, because that's where you're going to dip out, and then you start to recover. All right. Now, what I've done is I've created a scenario here. I'll do it again. So let's say, for example, we'll remove this. I'll give it nice and simple for you guys. I'll come back to that story in a second. Let's say, for example, we didn't recurve, and this is it. So we've hit our recovery by day 2. We're eating, we're sleeping, we're hydrated, we're replenishing the body. Boom, we're back past our homeostasis here. This is what we call super compensation. So super compensation is what you want, and that is how you're going to get used to a stimulus. So when we pass this, your body has already adapted to the stimulus that you apply. That's how you keep progressing. What happens is if you can't reach that same weight, that same PB, it's because you're still technically in your recovery depth. If you're not moving forward and you're just constantly chipping away and you can't reach where you were before, you haven't recovered. Simple. So we're super compensating. Super compensation is where you go past where you were comfortable at or what your body is used to, and now we're breaking past that. So now the body can actually handle more than that now because we're ready. The body's recovered. Does that make sense? Now, back to my other story. So, I'll let Will hand these out. So with super compensation is the technical term for recovery and then adapting beyond.
That's a banana flavour.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to remove that. What we see now, that's the perfect picture. In today's society, we don't see that. Why? Because people coming down here, they're under eating. High cortisol. Lack of sleep. Poor hydration. Overtraining. I see kids in the gym doing what I do, trying to train like me. And when I got into the industry, guess who I tried to be? A Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, one of those big boys. I tried to be a pro. But yet again, what we're not taught is actually what protocols of drugs they're actually using to get to where they're at. But the more you dive into it, the more you realise what we as individuals and beginners and intermediates, and as we work our way through the chain of fitness and development and progression, what we actually need to focus on. All right? Unless you're using what these guys are using, then this is what's going to stop you right there in your tracks and you'll never progress in your life. So what happens, right? We apply the stimulus. We're not eating enough. We're under training, especially in females. This is pretty common. Guys, this is the biggest indicator here. Our ego's too high. We're just like, yeah, more. Girls, you guys are like, nah, calories, carbs, none of that. So what happens, right, is we just keep training for 7 days. So 7 days goes on, and we've got none of these points helping us up to reduce our stress, and we don't ever recover. And that is what we're seeing. So as you guys just keep chipping away, you're initiating higher cortisol, and you never get the results. In terms of your strength progression, in terms of performance, endurance, size, muscle mass, stamina, all this. So the perfect picture is pulling yourself out, I would only recommend, I love a 2-day on, 1 off split in training. That way you can go hard, 1 upper, 1 lower, 1 leg, 1 chest, however you want to work it. Do 2 big heavy compounds. You know, generally I always finish a rest day after a leg, so I'll do like probably a chest day and then a leg day and then I'd rest. Reason being is because your legs and your back are such big dominant muscles that if you're going to go hard and grow them, you're going to go hard. As a result, you're going to be sore, you're going to be really tired, and you're going to be drained. Your body's going to need a lot of nutrients, a lot of rest. So I generally have a rest day after my 2 big days. I don't want to go and be an endurance athlete and just go for 7 days straight. I want to maximize what I can in those 2 days. So what we do is we optimize our days. Obviously everyone's schedule's different, but this is a good split. That way you go hard, 2 days, recover, 2 days, recover. I'm only on 4 days a week, and that's because I've got so much stress from a lot of work, long nights, big days, and that's me. You guys could probably go 5, but I'll optimize about 2 days rest. And then improve all these factors. And then you watch your performance, you watch your progression, and you watch your results. You're completely new people. Now, when it comes to doing this and then super compensating, what you do once you finish that exercise is going to determine your results. So for everyone in this room, I want you guys to pull out your calculators, calculate 0.4 times body weight.
So 100 kilo person is probably like 4 litres at rough math.
40. This is protein.
Oh, sorry, right.
Yeah. So if you're 100 kilos, straight mass, you'd be on 40 grams of protein. Everyone got your calculators out, you've figured out what you are. If you come over in the thousands or hundreds, the question is?
Too many zeros.
Most people are going to be around about the 23 to 29 mark. That's a common one, which is why you would see most of the proteins sitting at 23 grams. That's a standard, 23 grams or 30 grams of protein. So that's a standard. Obviously, myself, I'm past that. I'm almost 110, 109. So I'm past that. And that's why everyone is different and you need to look at doing this for yourself. Cool? Now,
You just work out.
So that's kind of protein to basically
Post-workout.
Yeah, post-workout, try and maximise recovery essentially. So what we're trying to say is you've got the protein supplements after workout to stop you from being in that state where you're breaking down, and get you back into rebuild mode. And the amount that's optimal for that is that sort of equation. So yeah, 100 kilo person, 40 grams of protein, 70 kilo person is going to be probably about 25, 23 grams or so. And that's usually about the amount we put in a protein powder. So what I showed you is the banana cream pie flavour. I've also got a strawberry and a salted caramel for the next rounds as well. Who's more of a strawberry fan? I'm going to do strawberries next. Strawberry, cool. You guys are going to go? Yeah, beautiful. This is my strawberry white chocolate. I'm quite stoked with this one.
all right, now another quick hack for you guys to take away from tonight. You remember how I said eat regular on metabolic windows?
Sure.
Adaptions?
Yeah, that's the way.
2 to 3 hours? All right, so on a rest day, most people are going to be on about four meals a day.
No, thank
Most people will eat 4 meals a day.
This one's
When we train, we want to prioritize training in a different day. But what I want you to do is calculate that and then time that number by 4 and then by 6 in 2 lots. What did we get?
652. Did I fuck it up?
Yeah, you did. Good time.
So it's separate, times 4 and then it's times
Yeah, so say for example, I'm 100 kilos, easy mass, 40 times 4.
Alright.
240.
90.4.
No, it's 160. Quick mass.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the times 4 mean?
So times 4, that is off most people's metabolic window, their rest day consumption of protein.
Oh, okay.
So if you're unsure how much protein you should be eating, that's quick mass. So studies have shown 0.4 to 0.5, top or end, grams times your body weight is enough protein per meal consumption in order to maximize your leucine threshold. Leucine is the key amino acid which are in proteins, which we all has, and the clinical dose is roughly about 2.7 grams, but eating between 0.4 to 0.5, obviously if you're not a hard gainer, 0.4 is your safe number, it's basic. You will be getting enough leucine in order to repair and initiate the beautiful thing, synthesis, which is growth.
So when you're eating post-workout, that's what you're looking for to hit
0.4.
that much?
Yep. Yep. Now, if you do that number, so 40 grams if you're 100 kilos, times 6, because I'm a big advocate for pre and post workout meal because you're fueling your body for workout, for performance. You're not fueling it for calories, you're fueling it for purely performance based. So if you do it by 6, you've got pre and post workout meals, and that'll be your training day application of protein.
So 4 is a day off, let's say.
On an average person,
Yeah.
for lifestyle choice. And studies have shown 0.4 times 4, or 4 meals a day will give you an adequate amount of your leucine, which is what you want for your synthesis.
Well, I think we threw some heap of knowledge at you this afternoon. I guess this what I'm running around with in the final rounds would be the caramel. Just to give people a good background there on more why protein's handy. Look, some of the numbers you have to hit, if you do it in just purely meat terms, it's pretty heavy for most people. Like usually most like lean protein sources like chicken or steak or fish, they're probably 20 to 25 grams of protein per 100 grams. So if you're trying to hit 150 to 200 grams of protein a day, you're eating a kilo of chicken breast a day. Which I've done without back in the hardcore days before protein powders and stuff. I just did it with food, and I ate a kilo of chicken breast a day for 5 years, and I don't want to look at it ever again. So I would rather you do something that tastes like strawberry white chocolate or like caramel banana. Salted caramel, by any chance? Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's funny you say that, Will. I get the question often,
Salted caramel?
would I ever go vegan or vegetarian? I'm like, I would never stop eating. For me to reach my amino acid profile for my weight and continue to grow, I'd be eating until the cows came home. Like, it's insane the amount. I already eat approximately about 4.2 kilos of rice a day. Yeah, that's cooked weight, not raw, obviously. So yeah, that's a fair bit of rice. So if I was to go vegan, to give you guys an example, I would need 8 full cups of rice. So that's what I put in my rice cooker to do me for pretty much a week, technically. So I need 8 full cups of raw grain rice, brown, in order to initiate my leucine. That's if I just want to be a rice eater. So that just goes to show the importance of why we would add supplements for certain individuals and for certain performance matrix.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I'm a big advocate for let's look at your food, let's look at your training, let's maximise. But this is where the supplements are going to come in. Because you physically just can't maximise those key macros that we as performance coaches look at. As individuals as well, that's the evidence and information that you need to support your use and your diet as well.
What was the crowd favourite, by the way? Out of who so far? Caramel? Say hi. No, it's a bit of caramel. So far it's banana or strawberry then?
Strawberry.
Yeah, I like banana.
Oh, we've got a banana fan too?
Yeah.
Banana? Yeah, beautiful. Crowd
It's like
favourite.
paddle pop.
Yes.
Yeah.
You saved me saying. Bang on what I was trying to get with that one as well. I was trying to make that like strawberry Nesquik. If anyone remembers from kids being real
that
down.
was
pretty close.
That's pretty close. That's
Yeah.
probably, yeah, it's real nostalgic, that strawberry. I don't know what that is, like strawberry Nesquik, strawberry oak sort of vibe. But banana paddle pop was exactly what I wanted, that sort of stuff. There's also like chocolate mint ice cream. I've got chocolate hazelnut, chocolate peanut butter, chocolate fudge brownie. I've got chocolate mint's hectically good. So I've got like 9 different ones to choose there. And by all means, the like non-stim pre-workouts there, you can taste it, and having no caffeine, you can taste it and go to bed. They're great like that. But yeah, thoroughly recommend if anyone, if there's any takeaway, really prioritise that sleep. That's the big way to move the stress, get moving in the morning, get it all going, and lifestyle hacks and supplements will be the best results for them. So yeah, thanks heaps for listening, guys. Any questions on that one? Feel free to ask.
Now.
If not, jump up and you can ask us separately. But if anyone's happy to ask in front of people, go for gold. Any questions around tonight, guys?
Does anyone have any questions about what I went over? Because sometimes the way I feel things can be simple in my head, but complicated out loud. Does that all make sense? I broke it down pretty well for you.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions that you want me to elaborate on? You want to learn more on?
Yeah, see how it says day 1, day 2,
Yep.
going down.
Yep.
When it goes up, is that like day 3, day 4?
Yeah, generally, so when I did the day 1 and day 2, if I want to be precise, I'd pretty much go
One down, one.
half and half.
Yeah, one down, one.
Yeah, so I'd pretty much go day 1, bottomed out, start of day 2, and the end of day 2 you'll be up here.
So at the start of day 3, basically, you're solid. Yeah.
Start of day 3, you're ready to roll, ready to pump.
Yeah.
Cool. Does that make sense? But everyone's different.
Yeah.
So, some people, like, if you're a new goer into the gym, like, I'm sorry, but it's going to take you a while.
Yeah.
Like,
It does. The first week's rough. The first 2 weeks is rough, really. But
that's
right.
where it comes down to. Sorry, that's where it comes down to. Obviously, like yourselves as individuals and coaches, and that's the point of overtraining. So like as an individual, I'm seeing like some people going in and doing what I would do, like trying to do 20 sets, go and do, you know, deadlifts straight up, 5 sets, and then they're going on and doing lat pull downs, 5 sets, see the rows. You've done 5 exercises by 5 sets, that's 25 sets.
It's a huge workout.
Way too much volume for a beginner.
Yeah.
But we don't know.
No.
And that's the biggest thing that I'm finding, and then this is why we create so many issues, not only in our balance of our posture and our mechanical patterns that we use, but also our hormone health as well, and our replenishment, because we just deplete ourselves that badly, because we're just going gung-ho. And that's where we need more educators, and that's what we're trying to present more of with us here at Personal Nutrition, is educate that. So we can find less people injuring, because so unfortunately it takes professional coaches and, you know, physios and osteos and all these people to pull them out, you know, 2 years.